Green flags. The green flags in women. What better quality women look like? Okay, so you can only identify these things once you've been run through the grinder in every way to Sunday sort of thing. So pay attention. Okay. Some of these green flags, by the way, are going to be the polar opposite of the red flags. Like I talk about why you want to stay away from women with daddy issues in the book and why that's a problem. A green flag is you want a woman that's got a good relationship with her father. If her father's around and she has a relationship with him, is it a good one? Does she, does she communicate with a guy on a regular basis? Do they hang out? Do they have dinner together every once in a while? Does she speak highly of him? Does she speak highly of men in general? Would be another green flag, right? Does she like men? Does she embrace masculinity? Okay. These are all tied into, does she have a good relationship with her old man? Is he a good guy too, right? What does a family look like? If, and, actually, before I continue, I should probably preface with a few things just to make it clear. If you want to be in a position to look for green flags and avoid toxic women and stay away from the red flags, you've got to do work on yourself first. Okay. Like you have to be a man worthy of seeking out these better qualities in women and staying away from the toxic qualities, i.e., the 20 red flags in that free chapter that I talk about over there. Because you're not going to be in a good position to do that. I mean, if you're broke, fat, you don't have style, you've got terrible neck beard style going on, or something crazy like that, you got to understand, guys, you got to get yourself sorted before you're going to be in a position to, oh, look, there's a nice green flag over there. I think I want to, get with her. There's quite a few here that I'm going to go through, but you get the idea. Do the work on yourself first. And I talk about in the book when you shouldn't and should date, so you can get clear on those details. It's available on Amazon. Get it. But I'm not going to talk about that in today's show. So let's get back into these green flags. The old man, good relationship. We talked about has an affinity towards strong masculinity. She likes men. She's got a good relationship with her father, that sort of thing. This is an important thing because you're a dude. And I'm assuming that you're a dude of some, level of competence and skills, and you got your life together and you got your act together, and you're more of a top shelf guy, leaning towards like a 1% sort of man. She has to have a good relationship with that, right? I'm coming at many of these assumptions from my own experience, so take it with a grain of salt. Some of these that I talk about over here, you may or may not be interested in. You may not even be in a position to seek them, depending on what your personal lifestyle choices have been. The next one I got is, if you get sick, does she take care of you? This is really important because your boys aren't going to do it. Your brothers aren't going to do it. Friends of yours, they're not going to take care of you if you get sick. A green flag in a woman is if she sees that you're not doing well, she doesn't go off in the other direction to the nightclub partying with her girlfriends and hanging out with them woo all night. She's got your back. She'll go out to the drugstore and pick up what you need. If there's certain things that need to get dealt with, that your boys or your friends probably wouldn't deal with just because the nature of, what's going on in your illness. A good woman, a woman with a clear and concise green flag, takes care of a dude if he's sick. She doesn't run off on him. She doesn't go ignore him. She doesn't abandon him in any sense whatsoever. Now, you're not going to be in a position to be able to ask her to help you out and take care of you if you're not a guy worthy of that. Again, if you're broke, fat, boring, incompetent, insignificant, all those things, chances are you're not in a position to say, hey, babe, I'm not feeling so good. You want to come on over and take care of me? This is what's going on in my life. She's going to be like, no, that's okay. I'm going to go over here and hang out with Betsy. That's what's going to end up happening. So if you're a top shelf guy and she's not taking care of you, red flag, get rid of her. Top shelf guy and something goes sideways in your life and you need looking after for a short period of time, that's a green flag. Another green flag is she stays away from news, drama, cable TV, bachelorette type of shows, bachelor shows, all that crap. If she doesn't have cable, that's a good chick. That's a green flag. If she's not sitting around watching news all day or CNN or any of that nonsense, that's a green flag. If she's not constantly chasing drama on podcast platforms, like one podcast that I would say is a red flag is if you have her paying attention to like silly shows like Call Her Daddy or what's that one with that porn star? The two girls in the kitchen, even though they're doing nothing in the kitchen that's related to making food, they're just sitting there yammering away. Stuff like that. Anything that's news, drama, gossip, bachelorette type of stuff, red flag, stay away from that. She doesn't consume it. That's a good thing. Same thing with the phone. You know, if she's on her phone a lot, she's consuming a lot of content, she's consuming a lot of social media. That's a big red flag. It's not a good use of her time. There's far, far better things that could be done. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I shouldn't have to spend too much time on that. Again, some of these, I'm going to assume that you guys have enough common sense to, you know, understand exactly what I'm talking about. I shouldn't have to spell out every single line for you. So we talked about that. Let's go to generally positive and cheery about life and work. So I've dated a couple women that all they do is they just bitch and whine and complain about people at work. I remember this one girl, she would constantly talk about this character at her office. She used to call her Ghetto Pussy. And it's like, oh, you wouldn't believe what Ghetto Pussy did at work today and blah, blah, blah. It's like all I got was an earful for like 20, 25 minutes every day about Ghetto Pussy. And I was like, that is quite enough. And then there was another one, different girl complaining all the time about the part-timer. All right, there's another earful every single day about what this idiot would do in the office and how you had to listen to all the negativity. Generally speaking, a green flag in a woman is she's generally positive and she's cheery about life and work. She's not coming at you all the time with her bull crap about characters in the office with their nicknames, Ghetto Pussy and part-timer. You get the idea. You know what I'm saying? Be very, very careful with that. You also want to look for a woman that's got some purpose in life, okay? But she isn't a boss girl. So, you know, I had this conversation, I think it was about a week ago with one of the newer guys in my group. And, you know, he was like, oh, yeah, you know, I like these kinds of girls. I'm like, okay, so what kind of girl do you like? He's like, oh, you know, I like these boss girls. And all the generals, you know, basically sat back and like, all right, who wants to take this one first, right? These women with purpose at boss girl level, they're a nightmare. They're insufferable. They're always going to be a real pain in your butt. Now, again, these are all women that you can have interactions with. You can have, you know, short-term FWB sorts of relationships. You can spin them as plates. But what I'm saying here is, because the question that I got was, what do the green flags look like? How do I identify better quality women, Rich? Okay, this is what we're talking about. So we're talking about stuff that, you know, you might want to look for, like positive traits if you wanted to invite her into your life when she brings up the talk. You don't say, hey, you know, let's be boyfriend and girlfriend. Let her bring up the talk, like, where do we stand? And that's when you can decide from then. But these are the green flags that I'm telling you guys to look for. So that should make sense to you. Again, she's got some purpose in life, but she's not a boss girl. Like, she's got something going on. You know, she's not basic, if you know what I'm saying. So, like, there's something happening there. The next one after that I took note of is she takes ownership for her choices in life. Why is this important? Why is this a green flag? Because accountability and women are two words that don't usually go together very often. Okay. You see it a lot on a lot of the social platforms. It's always somebody else's fault. The government, the patriarchy, my boss, my husband, my ex-husband, my ex-boyfriend, my boyfriend. It's always somebody out there that's doing them wrong. And a solid green flag in a woman is a woman specifically that takes ownership for her choices in life. She makes some bad choices. You know what? That was stupid of me. I'm not going to do that again. And if they need help with something, then they seek help. You know, they'll go looking for answers. If they need a therapist for something, then they talk to a therapist. You know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. What's wrong with that is if she's talking to multiple therapists and you see her medicine cabinet and there's rows and rows of prescription bottles of all kinds of, you know, happy pills in there, if you know what I'm saying. That's a little bit offside, but you want somebody that's going to take ownership for their choices. It should be obvious to you. Okay. I shouldn't have to clarify that one too much. Next one I got is, and you know, this is kind of again, an opposite towards a red flag is, you want to make sure that she doesn't have a large notch count. Okay. Notch count ties into being alpha widowed. Well, let's talk about being alpha widowed for a moment here. If she's constantly running her mouth about some guy from her past, how good or how bad he was, it doesn't matter. But if she doesn't shut up about some guy from her past, or tries to compare you to a guy from her past. Another one would be comparing your worst to one of her girlfriend's best. Okay, that's kind of a red flag. We're talking about green ones right now, but we're going to go back and forth and explain why that one's important. Let's say you're a top shelf guy. You got your life together, you make bank, drive a nice car, your house is paid off, you got loads of money, lots of investments, assets, blah, 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 that sort of stuff. And you're the kind of guy that, leaves your socks on the floor, right? If she's constantly chirping you about your socks being on the floor, or why can't you put the white socks in the white hamper and the dark socks in the dark hamper? And then she starts comparing you to, I don't know, Billy, who is, Nancy's husband or boyfriend or whatever. Well, he doesn't leave his socks on the floor, and he picks them up and he puts them in the hamper. And all right, she's chirping you now. What does Billy do? Is he a garbage collector? Is he a janitor at the gym? Like, what does he do? Right? Like, what's the guy all about? Because if she's comparing your worst, which is leaving socks on the floor, to her girlfriend's best, which is a guy that picks up his socks, but he's got nothing else going on in your life. You see what I'm getting at here, right? Like, you want to pay attention to that. Let me just go back to the alpha widow thing. If she's going to always talk about some guy from her past, guy that she was with and guy that she was intimate with, and she can't get him out of her head, she's never going to be able to look at you as her best. You're never going to get her best, at the end of the day. So you want to stay away from those that have been alpha widowed, that haven't gotten over dudes from their past. If it's dudes, it's a big problem. If it's a dude, it's still a problem. If there's nothing there, that's a green flag, right? Next one. She's pleasant and doesn't nag you persistently. Do I need to explain that one? A green flag in a woman is you kind of lose track of time when you hang out together. You laugh a lot. She laughs at your jokes. You have a good time sort of thing. You have some dialogue and some banter. Okay. But, if all you're listening to is, why can't you do this? And you're driving me crazy for that. And if all you're listening to is unpleasant dialogue and nagging, it's a red flag. I mean, why would you want to invite that in your life? You want somebody that's pleasant and doesn't nag you persistently. You see what I'm saying? Next one. You want a woman that's going to encourage and support your purpose. Why is that important? Because you're a dude. Guys need to chase excellence. You have to have something going on in your world. Something. Anything. The more significant, the more important it is, the more impact that it has in your lives and those of others, the better it is for you. And if she's going to encourage and support you being on your grind, that's a good thing. If she's going to get in the way of that, it's a bad thing. It's a red flag, right? So you want to see an obvious sign that she's not getting in the way of that. So i.e., let's say that you host events or you have to go to events, and there's certain days of the week that has to happen on. Let's say that it ends up falling on a day that you would normally see this lady. And then she's like, okay, cool, no problem. I'll just, I'll meet you afterwards. I'll see you at your house, or, just come over to my place when you're done. That's a green flag. That's a good sign. But if she's going to chirp you like, Wednesday nights are our nights, no, you can't, why'd you do that? And blah, blah, blah. That's a red flag, straight up. Right. So look for somebody that's going to support and encourage your purpose, whatever your grind happens to be. I didn't talk about the notch count with the alpha widow part. So the notch count is really important. I talk about it in the red flag chapter in my book. Again, you can get that over here. There's a few different places in the book why I define why that's important. But a woman can't form a healthy pair bond to a guy if she's run through a bunch of guys. It's as simple as that. You don't want to, like, at any conflict or any corner, like if she's been through 50, 60, 100 guys, I don't even care. Any number that is more than one is going to complicate more and more. It's just, as the number gets bigger, the worse it gets. 50 is obviously worse than 10. 10 is obviously worse than 2. You get the idea. But if there's something going on and she's not digging it, she's going to bounce quicker if she's used to bouncing, right? She's been through a bunch of guys. I'm out. Leave my crap on the front porch. I'm going to pick it up. I'm out of here. You know what the lyrics sound and look like, right? So you want a woman that's got a low notch count so that she's going to enter your frame and complement your life and not chirp you and nag you persistently and be unpleasant, all those sorts of things. A woman with a lower notch count is more likely to be a compliment to your life, if you know what I'm saying. All right. Um, she's active and she exercises. I mean, a lot of these that I'm talking about here are things that I think about. You know, if she's dormant and sits around all day like this, and she's basically, you know, made out of like jello, and it happens with bigger women, it also happens with smaller women. You know, you don't have to be obese to have horrible body composition, if you know what I'm saying. So, a woman that's active and exercises should be important. It matters to me. It's up to you. It doesn't matter to you. Who cares? But I look at it as a green flag, right? Because I like to do shit. She's got culinary skills. This is important. I like to eat. I don't necessarily like to prepare meals all the time. I offer things that women don't offer, right? Do I need to list them all? She better show up with some culinary skills, right? Because if she doesn't have them, what does she have to offer? You know, there's an old line that that an old friend of mine used to say, and he used to say that a woman's got a very simple job. If your stomach's full, she's got to keep your balls empty. It's as simple as that. And you know, you can decide for yourself whether or not you think that's right or wrong or offside. Doesn't matter to me. But to me, a green flag is a woman that knows how to cook. Most women today, they don't know how to cook or they have terrible culinary skills. All that they know how to do is order Uber Eats, or they have one dish that they can make. It's very basic. So I look for a woman that's got culinary skills. She knows how to cook. She makes healthy meals. They're good. She knows what she's doing. That's what I'm talking about. I think that's important. Personally, I wouldn't bypass it. I think too many guys just like, it's okay. I'm just going to ignore that. We can just order food, or I'm a good chef. There's some guys out there that like to cook. I've got a few close friends of mine, a couple guys I know that have amazing culinary skills, and they just like to cook. That's fine. Me, that's not me. So you know, you can customize these for you as you go, but it's a non-negotiable as far as I'm concerned. She's tidy and cleans up unprompted and continues doing so unprompted, right? Give you an example. So if your chick is she makes your bed in the morning, let's say, okay, you get up, you have your coffee, she gets up, does her thing, have her shower, and you go upstairs later on, you notice the bed's been made. That's good, very nice. You know, I appreciate that's very kind. But if that starts to gets lackadaisical, you know, like I don't know, maybe she's got something going on. She's in a little bit of a huff or a hissy with you, and she doesn't make the bed. That's unacceptable. You want to see consistent behavior. You want to know that you can rely on her, because if you're going to invite her into your life over a longer term basis, you need to know that she's reliable and consistent and doesn't waver from positive behaviors, from green flag type of behaviors, and small things like that. I mean, you got to hold them accountable. It's like, hold on a second. You know, one of the reasons why I selected you and invited you into my life is because you were doing these things. You know, just insert whatever reason. You know, you're making my bed in the morning. Now all of a sudden you don't do that anymore. Well, what's up with that, right? You hold them accountable to it. You know, sometimes you got to course correct. You know, soft necks might be necessary. It really depends on what's going on. You know, there's dishes in the sink. She does them. You know, if the dishwasher is beeped and it's finished, she empties it, sort of thing. You see what I'm saying, right? Like, you know, you want a woman that's tidy, because there's some gross chicks out there. Like, I'll be honest with you. They live in pigsties. Their cars are a total train wreck. The inside is basically a garbage collection dump. They've got like a freaking zoo in their house, and all these animals with hair and feces and pee and all kinds of crap everywhere. You know what I'm talking about. You want a tidy chick that cleans up unprompted and continues to do so. You know, if she's doing your laundry and it's been going on for months, and then all of a sudden she stops doing your laundry, that's a problem, right? Hold her accountable to it. Whoa, hold on a second. You know, what happened over here, right? This is, again, one of the reasons why I invited you into my life. This is why I chose you. You know, let's make sure that this stuff continues, right? We talked about losing track of time, laughter. Oh, this is an important one. Guys, if you got kids or a kid and she doesn't engage them, isn't sweet, or doesn't treat them I mean, not like her own, obviously. That's a different story. But if she doesn't treat them at least like her own nieces and nephews, okay, that's a problem. That's a big one for me. I got a kid. If my girl doesn't have a good relationship with her, then that's going to be problematic on a long-term basis, right? That's a green flag. And you want that to continue. Again, it's the same thing with the being tidy and cleaning up unprompted and continue to do so, sort of thing. You know, maintain that relationship with your kid or your kids over a long-term basis. If it wavers and it gets worse, okay, that green flag turned into a red flag. These things can change colors. They can go back and forth. You can mention it to her, and if she doesn't acknowledge it, then that's fine. Maybe you keep her at arm's length. Maybe you don't invite her so close in your life. You see what I'm saying here, right? You have to know how to work these things. We talked about social media. Actually, let's talk a little bit more about social media, because that's one of the red flags. I want to talk about the green flag notion of it. She's going to use a smartphone, a handheld device, not for attention. She's going to use it to keep in touch with family and friends. If it turns into an attention device, notifications are going off. Like, a green flag in a chick for me would be she doesn't have any notifications on her phone whatsoever. The only notification I've got on this phone is phone calls and text messages from certain people. That's it. And one other message group, which goes off, constantly if I need to know about it. But all other notifications from all other apps are completely silent. That's a green flag, for me and a chick, simply because she's not glued to that device. It's not like you have to use the smartphones to create and make money and stay in contact. That's really what it's for. But if it's a consumption device where you're always on it, it's binging and bonging and liking and da-da-da, and somebody said this and DMs and da-da-da, her phone's basically a box of dicks. She's going to be talking to a lot of different dudes. And I guarantee that you're probably going to have some problems at some point later on down the road. You know what I'm saying? She doesn't post publicly. Okay. If she uses Facebook, there's Globe, which is global for everybody to see. There's Friends, and then there's closer networks that you can also define as well too. She's posting mostly in the closer networks. She's not posting globally. If she uses Instagram, it's private. It's not public. If she uses it publicly, it's because she better be selling something. Does she have a makeup line? Does she have a service that she performs? Does she have a product line that she sells? Is it part of a newsletter or something that's part of her business? You see what I'm saying, right? Like, if she's going to use social media publicly, it better be for running a business, not for any other reason whatsoever. Okay, green flag. You understand? Obedience. Obedience is important. Now, she's not a dog, Rich. That's not what I'm talking about. If you ask her to do something for the benefit of the relationship, because I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, right? Because she wants to be part of your life, and you ask her to do something for the benefit to protect it or to preserve it or to minimize risks and problems that might come the way of the relationship, and she executes on your instructions, that's a good thing. If she doesn't, and she protests or she puts it off or she ignores you, that is a bad thing. That is a red flag. You want to identify these green flags and make sure that you constantly correct. So you can flip back and forth. She could be green flagging you for months, and then all of a sudden, something comes up and you ask her to do it. She ignores you. She protests. She puts it off. She doesn't acknowledge it. Okay, now we're turning this thing into a red flag here. She's not obedient anymore. Now she's a problem for me. She's a liability, right? You have to make sure that you're clear on these things and that you identify the good traits, which, by the way, don't always stay good. Okay, women always reserve the right to change their mind at any given time, any place, anywhere. She could have, she could have a affinity for doing your laundry, and then it stops, and you're like, what happened there? I thought that this is something that was going to continue, right? And then you try to encourage the same behavior that existed before. Doesn't? Okay. I'm not as keen on that anymore, right? These are some of the things that I took into consideration when I decided to invite you into my life. You see what I'm saying? So obedience is one of those things. And I think it's really important to understand, because you want a woman that's a complement to your life, not the focus. And if she's constantly dragging your attention away from things that your attention should not be dragged away from because of trivial drama, disobedience, whatever it happens to be, that's problematic. That's a red flag. Look for the green flags. And ladies, if you're watching this, all women out there, they want the exact same thing. 6'6", 6 foot tall, 6 inches in the pants, 6-figure income, 6 months out of a relationship, 600 horsepower car, blah, blah. And it keeps going down the list, right? Funny, competent, alpha. I can keep going, right? All of these things. You want all those things out of a guy? Well, guess what? What do you bring to the table? Are you bringing problems into a man's life, or are you bringing solutions? Are you a complement to his life? Are you useful? Are you, when he asks you to do something, are you complying? Are you obedient, or do you protest and, behave like a little brat? You see what I'm saying here? These green flags and red flags are things that I talk about for a reason, because guys need to understand them. And women, if you're listening to this, you need to understand that a guy in that position has the right to do all of these things. If you don't like that, you can go find the dorky beta out there and you can be with that, because that's all you're going to get. Top shelf men don't put up with crap. That's just the way that it is. We just have a quick look over here and see what we got going on in the chat. Oh, you guys are tearing it up. Moff, got Jaron in there from Men's Shrine. A bunch of you guys are ripping it up. Got a couple super chats here. Yes, looks like we have an agreement. Just supporting the content. Thank you. Appreciate that. Diamond, what is up? That is the bulk of the list. I didn't talk about the competing part. It's a red flag on my list. Again, it's on this chapter over here. You want to grab it. But you do not want a woman that competes with what you're doing. Let's say, like as an example, so I have a YouTube channel and I help guys unplug from comforting lies and, fix their lives, sort of thing. Let's say that she's doing something that competes with that, or, causes problems for that narrative, right? That's a problem. That's not a green flag. That's a red flag. On the other hand, if she's like, telling a dude, hey, my boyfriend got this book. It's a nice piece of work. You should check it out. It'll solve your issues in your head. You see what I'm saying, right? Like, you want the woman to complement your life. You're looking for a green flag. So I'm not really sure why it's not that obvious to some guys out there. I've spelled out a few of these things from a number of different perspectives, from my own and from a few other guys that I've spoken with. But so Jaron's in the chat. It's a great point, the way they put it there. Only date women that collaborate with you, not compete, right? You want a woman that's going to collaborate with what you're doing. What can I do to be useful? Would be, if a woman can come up to me and say, hey, Rich, what can I do to be useful to you today with whatever project that you're working on? That's a green flag. You're not going to get that, though, very often. Very, very, very few women, will set aside what it is that's going on in their world and their phone for a few moments just to say, hey, Rich, what can I do to be useful to you today in your this or that or whatever? You see what I'm saying, right? You want her to be a compliment. Lena says, what about easily threatened? Lots are. Threatened by what? Threatened by what exactly? Like other women? Like, some competition anxiety is good when it comes to women. So I think that she should recognize your value and recognize that other women are going to be interested in you because of your value. That's fine. But if it turns into something like extreme jealousy, which I talk about in the red flag chapter below, you'll see what the difference is, right? Competition anxiety is totally fine. Absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that.